My name is Emily Carter. I work late shifts and raise my son Noah in Naperville, Illinois. My mother Margaret donated $25,000 to Noah's private school. But somehow, the school newsletter listed Diane Carter Family Foundation as the donor. My mother-in-law had stolen the credit. Then came the school board meeting. Some people don't belong here, Diane said, pointing at my mother. Who invited her? Margaret stood slowly. I did. I invited myself. Because I am the donor. Diane's smile froze. That's impossible. Margaret opened her leather folder. I have proof. Documents spread across the table. Bank statements. Cancelled checks. The room went silent. Later, Detective Martinez told me the truth. Your mother-in-law has been running a scheme. 4 other families. Over $300,000 total. Diane had convinced families to donate through her foundation. Then claimed credit for herself. What happens when someone steals your mother's generosity? If you're hearing this story, tell me in the comments. Where in the world are you listening from? Before we begin today's story, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Now let's get started. Emily Carter sat at her kitchen table in suburban Naperville, Illinois. Mail scattered across the wooden surface. Bills. School brochures. A Medicare statement folded twice. The envelope was addressed to Margaret Lee. Her mother's name printed in block letters. Emily set it aside without opening it. Outside, October leaves drifted past the window. The afternoon light felt tired. Like everything else lately. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adam. Running late. Order pizza? Emily typed back quickly. Sure. Noah burst through the front door, backpack bouncing. His cheeks were flushed from the school bus ride. Mom, guess what? We got the acceptance letter. He waved a thick envelope. Oakwood Academy letterhead gleamed in gold foil. Emily's stomach tightened. That's wonderful, honey. Noah spread the papers across the table. Orientation schedule. Uniform requirements. A donor appreciation dinner invitation. Look at this part, he said, pointing to a glossy brochure. They have a robotics lab. And a real observatory. Emily smiled at his excitement. But her eyes found the tuition breakdown. Numbers that made her hands cold. Dad said Grandma Margaret helped, Noah continued. She's so cool. Margaret had insisted on paying. Quietly, privately. A check written in careful cursive, signed with her maiden name. No fanfare, just love. Adam arrived home with pizza boxes and tired eyes. His tie hung loose around his neck. How was orientation prep? He asked. Good, Emily said softly. Noah's excited. They ate dinner while Noah chattered about his future classmates. Private school kids. Children of doctors and lawyers and business owners. Emily listened and nodded, but worry sat heavy in her chest. After Noah went to bed, Emily called her mother. Hello, sweetheart. Margaret's voice was warm through the phone. I wanted to thank you again. For the school. Don't mention it, Margaret said quietly. That boy deserves every opportunity. Margaret lived alone in a modest apartment. Social security checks covered her basic needs. The donation had come from savings she'd accumulated over decades. Every dollar carefully preserved. I asked them not to make it public, Margaret continued. No announcements. No ceremony. Emily felt relief wash over her. Thank you. Privacy matters at my age, Margaret added with a gentle laugh. The next morning brought a different energy. Emily drove Noah to Oakwood Academy for a tour. The campus sprawled across manicured grounds. Brick buildings with ivy-covered walls. Children in crisp uniforms walking between classes. In the main office, they met Principal Harrison. He shook Emily's hand warmly. We're delighted to welcome Noah. Your family's support means everything to our community. Emily felt confusion flicker across her face. Our support? The Carter family donation, he continued. It's quite generous. Before Emily could respond, a familiar voice filled the space. Robert, how lovely to see you again. Emily turned. Diane Carter swept into the office. Noah's grandmother. Adam's mother. Her silver hair was perfectly styled. Diamond earrings caught the light. Diane embraced Principal Harrison like an old friend. I was just telling Mrs. Carter about the family donation, he said. Diane's smile was radiant. We're so proud to support this institution. Education has always been important to the Carter family. Emily felt the room shift around her. The principal nodded respectfully at Diane. His attention moved away from Emily entirely. "Your mother-in-law is quite the philanthropist," he told Emily. "We're fortunate to have such dedicated families." Emily's mouth went dry. She wanted to speak but couldn't find words. Diane placed a manicured hand on Noah's shoulder. "This young man represents our values perfectly." The tour continued with Diane leading the way. She pointed out classrooms and facilities like she'd designed them herself. Other parents nodded politely when she spoke. "Mrs. Carter was instrumental in our new science wing," a teacher mentioned. Emily followed behind, invisible. Her mother's quiet generosity had somehow become Diane's public triumph. On the drive home, Noah bubbled with excitement. "Grandma Diane knows everyone there. Did you see how they talked to her?" Emily gripped the steering wheel. "Yes, I saw." That evening, she tried to explain her discomfort to Adam. He was reviewing work emails on his laptop. "Your mother took credit for my mother's donation." Adam looked up briefly. "What do you mean?" "The principal thinks Diane paid for Noah's tuition." "Everyone thinks that." Adam returned to his screen. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Mom's been involved with that school for years. She serves on committees, volunteers for events. Emily felt her frustration growing. But she didn't pay for anything. "Does it really matter who gets credit?" Adam asked. "Noah's enrolled. That's what counts." Emily stared at her husband. His indifference hurt more than Diane's deception. Late that night, she sat alone in the kitchen. The Medicare statement still lay unopened on the counter. Margaret's name written in careful government print. Her mother lived modestly, clipped coupons, bought generic brands, saved every penny for things that mattered, like her grandson's education. Emily thought about Diane's diamond earrings, her expensive car, the way she commanded attention at the school. Margaret would never demand recognition. She gave quietly, with dignity. Her generosity came from sacrifice, not surplus. But somehow, that sacrifice had become invisible, erased by someone else's need for applause. Emily opened the Medicare statement finally. Pages of medical codes and co-payments. Her mother's routine doctor visits itemized in sterile language. Margaret's health wasn't perfect. Diabetes medication, blood pressure pills, the careful management of aging. Yet she'd given thousands of dollars for Noah's future. Asked for nothing in return except privacy. Emily folded the statement back up. Tomorrow, she would call the school. Correct the record. Restore her mother's rightful place. But deep down, she suspected the truth would be harder to establish than the lie. Some stories, once told, became permanent, even when they were someone else's to tell. 3 days later, Emily found the school newsletter on her doorstep. Glossy paper, professional layout, the Oakwood Academy eagle embossed in gold. She carried it inside with her morning coffee. Noah was upstairs getting dressed for school. Adam had already left for work. Emily flipped through the pages. Student achievements, faculty announcements. Then she saw it. The donor recognition section. Her coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. There, printed in bold letters under Major Contributors, was a name that made her blood freeze. Diane Carter family minus $25,000. Emily read the line 3 times. Then 4. The words didn't change. Her phone was in her hands before she realized she'd picked it up. She dialed Margaret's number. "Hello, sweetheart. Mom, did you see the school newsletter?" A pause. "No, dear. Should I have?" They listed the wrong donor. They put Diane's name instead of yours. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "I see. You need to call them. Fix this." "Emily, I specifically asked them not to publish my name at all." Emily's confusion deepened. "But they published someone's name." "The wrong someone." Margaret sighed softly. "These things happen sometimes. Paperwork gets mixed up." "This isn't mixed up paperwork, Mom. This is theft." That afternoon, Emily drove to Oakwood Academy. The development office was located in the main building. Carpeted hallways, oil paintings of distinguished alumni. Ms. Rodriguez, the director, welcomed Emily with professional courtesy. "How can I help you today?" "There's an error in the newsletter. The donor recognition section." Ms. Rodriguez pulled out a copy. Her finger traced down the list. "Everything appears accurate to me. My mother-in-law didn't make that donation." "My mother did." Ms. Rodriguez frowned slightly. "Mrs. Carter, our records show the donation came from the Diane Carter Family Foundation." Emily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. What foundation? The family foundation established by your husband's mother. She's been a supporter for several years. Emily's mind raced. Can you show me the paperwork? I'm sorry, but donor information is confidential. I can only share details with the account holder. And who is the account holder? Mrs. Diane Carter. Emily drove home in a daze. The neighborhood looked different somehow. Familiar houses seemed to belong to strangers. At home, she called Adam's office. I need you to ask your mother about something. Adam's voice sounded distant. Can it wait? I'm in meetings all day. No, it can't wait. That evening, Adam arrived home with Chinese takeout and a defensive expression. I talked to Mom. She explained everything. Emily set down her chopsticks. Explained what? She set up a family foundation years ago. All our donations go through it. For tax purposes. Your mother didn't donate anything. My mother did. Adam's jaw tightened. Mom said she processes donations through the foundation sometimes. To help family members get better tax benefits. Did she ask my mother's permission? She was trying to help. Emily stared at her husband. Help who? The next morning, Emily called Margaret again. Mom, did Diane ask you about using her foundation? Margaret's voice was carefully neutral. She mentioned it might be helpful. Did you agree? A long pause. She seemed to think it was standard practice. Emily felt anger building in her chest. It's not standard practice. It's fraud. Emily, I don't want trouble. This isn't about trouble. This is about respect. Margaret sighed. At my age, dear, recognition doesn't matter much. It should matter to everyone else. That weekend, the Carter family gathered at Diane's house for Sunday dinner. The dining room table was set with fine china. Crystal glasses caught afternoon light. Diane swept in from the kitchen, wearing a silk blouse and pearl necklace. Emily, darling, you look lovely. How's my brilliant grandson? Noah hugged his grandmother enthusiastically. Grandma Diane, my science teacher said Oakwood has the best lab equipment in the county. Diane's smile was radiant. Well, we do our best to support excellence. Emily's fork paused midway to her mouth. The word, we, echoed in her mind. After dinner, the adults sat in the living room. Noah played with his tablet in the corner. The newsletter looked beautiful, Emily said quietly. Diane preened. I've been working with their publications committee. Professional presentation matters, especially for donor recognition. Diane's eyes sparkled. It's so important to acknowledge community investment. Adam shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mom, Emily had some questions about the foundation. Diane turned to Emily with practiced interest. Of course, dear. What would you like to know? How exactly does it work? Well, it's quite simple really. Family members can channel their charitable giving through the foundation. It streamlines everything. Emily felt her pulse quicken. And who decides how the donations get credited? The foundation board makes those decisions. For optimal tax efficiency. Who's on the board? Diane smiled sweetly. I serve as chairman. Adam is the secretary. Emily looked at her husband. You're involved in this? Adam's face flushed. It's just paperwork, Emily. Legal formalities. Emily turned back to Diane. So when my mother donated to Noah's school, the foundation processed it appropriately. Under your name. Diane's smile never wavered. Under the foundation's name, which, yes, bears our family designation. Emily felt the room growing smaller. But the recognition went to you personally. Well, I am the foundation's representative. That night, Emily lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Adam pretended to sleep beside her. You knew, she whispered. Adam's breathing changed. Knew what? You knew your mother was taking credit for my mother's donation. It's not that simple. Emily sat up. It's exactly that simple. Mom's been involved with that school for years. She serves on committees. She organizes events. Maybe she deserves some recognition. For what? Other people's money? Adam rolled over to face the wall. I don't want to fight about this. Emily stared at her husband's back. We're already fighting about it. The next morning, Emily called the school again. Ms. Rodriguez, I need to understand something about donation processing. Mrs. Carter, as I mentioned, I can only discuss account details with the primary contact. Who is the primary contact for my son's tuition donation? Mrs. Diane Carter. Emily felt trapped in a maze of bureaucracy and deception. Every turn led back to the same wall. Her mother's quiet generosity had been hijacked. Rebranded. Sold as someone else's virtue. Margaret had saved for years. Sacrificed. Given freely. Diane had signed papers. Claimed credit. Basked in applause. And somehow, the system protected the lie better than it honored the truth. Emily hung up the phone and stared out her kitchen window. Her neighbor was raking leaves in the yard next door. Simple work. Honest work. She envied him. 2 weeks later, Emily received an engraved invitation. Heavy cardstock. Gold lettering. The Oakwood Academy Annual Gala. Black tie optional. Celebrating our community of donors. Adam found the invitation on the kitchen counter that evening. "This should be nice," he said, loosening his tie. Emily looked up from No's homework. "Are we going?" "Of course. It's important to show support." Emily felt her stomach tighten. "Important to who?" Adam's expression darkened. "To our son's education." The following Saturday, Emily stood before her closet. 2 black dresses hung side by side. One was 5 years old. The other was borrowed from her sister. Neither felt appropriate for claiming someone else's generosity. She chose the borrowed dress. Black silk. Simple lines. It would have to do. Adam adjusted his tie in the bathroom mirror. "Mom's picking us up. She wants to arrive together." "Together?" "As a family. For photos." Emily's reflection stared back from the vanity mirror. Her lipstick was applied carefully. Her hair styled with precision. But her eyes looked tired. Diane's silver Mercedes pulled into the driveway at 6 o'clock sharp. She emerged wearing a midnight blue gown. Diamonds at her throat and ears. Her hair was swept into an elegant chignon. "Emily, darling, you look lovely," she said, though her eyes suggested otherwise. The drive to the country club was filled with Diane's chatter about seating arrangements and auction items. "I specifically requested our table be near the stage," she explained. Visibility matters at these events. The country club's ballroom was transformed. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables. Fresh flowers crowned each setting. A jazz quartet played softly near the bar. Emily scanned the room. Parents mingled in clusters. Expensive gowns and tailored suits. The subtle displays of wealth that marked private school society. Their table was indeed near the stage. Prime positioning for recognition moments. Diane swept toward their seats like she owned the venue. Other parents nodded and smiled when she passed. "Diane, wonderful to see you again. Mrs. Carter, thank you for everything you do." Emily followed in her wake, invisible. At their table, Emily found herself seated between a cardiologist's wife and a real estate developer. Polite conversation flowed around her. "Are your children at Oakwood?" the cardiologist's wife asked. "My son is in 7th grade. "How nice. Which family donation got him in?" Emily's fork paused over her salad. "Excuse me?" The woman leaned closer conspiratorially. "Everyone knows admission requires family investment. Which program did you support?" Before Emily could answer, Diane's voice carried across the table. "We contributed to the science program. State-of-the-art equipment. The children deserve the best." The cardiologist's wife nodded approvingly. "How generous of you." Emily felt heat rising in her cheeks. The word, "we," hung in the air like smoke. Principal Harrison took the stage after dinner. The room quieted respectfully. "Tonight, we celebrate the families who make excellence possible." Applause rippled through the ballroom. "Our major donors understand that education is investment in tomorrow." A slideshow began. Photos of new facilities. Updated laboratories. The robotics program Noah loved. The Carter Family Science Wing represents the kind of partnership that transforms young minds. Emily's breath caught. On the screen, a plaque appeared. Brass lettering on polished wood. Donated by the Diane Carter Family Foundation. The spotlight found their table. Diane rose gracefully, her smile radiant. She waved to the audience like royalty acknowledging subjects. Applause filled the room. Sustained. Enthusiastic. Emily remained seated. Her hands clenched in her lap. "Please stand, dear," Diane whispered. "You're part of the family." Emily's legs felt frozen. Around her, people clapped and smiled. The cardiologist's wife beamed at her. How wonderful to sit with such philanthropists. Emily's chair scraped against the floor as she rose. The room tilted slightly. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. She was standing, applauding, smiling, playing her assigned role in someone else's performance. The slideshow continued. More projects. More recognition. Diane's name appeared repeatedly. Garden restoration, Diane Carter. Library expansion, Carter Foundation. Athletic program, D. Carter Memorial Fund. Emily's vision blurred. The names ran together like watercolors in rain. During the auction portion, Diane bid aggressively on a wine tasting weekend. Her paddle rose confidently with each increment. Going once. Going twice. Sold to Diane Carter for $8,000. More applause. More smiles. More recognition for someone who gave away other people's money. Emily excused herself to the restroom. The hallway was quieter, cooler. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. "How's the dinner, sweetheart? I hope they're treating you well." Emily stared at the message. Her mother was home alone, watching television, eating a simple dinner, unaware that her sacrifice was being celebrated as someone else's triumph. She typed back, "It's lovely. Thank you for making it possible." Margaret's response came quickly, "Anything for Noah. Love you." Emily returned to the ballroom as dessert was being served. Chocolate mousse with gold leaf garnish. Diane was holding court at their table. "Philanthropy is such a family tradition. We believe in giving back." The real estate developer nodded. "Your foundation's impact is remarkable. We're blessed to be in a position to help." Emily's spoon clinked against her dessert plate. The sound seemed too loud. After dinner, families gathered for photos. Professional photographers captured smiling groups against elegant backdrops. "Carter family, you're next," a photographer called. Diane arranged them like a director staging a scene. She placed Emily slightly behind and to the side. "Perfect. Now everyone smile." The camera flashed. Emily's smile felt painted on. In the car afterward, Diane chattered about the evening's success. "Did you see how many people congratulated us?" The board members were especially appreciative. Emily stared out the passenger window. Streetlights blurred past like fallen stars. The photographers got wonderful shots. "I'll make sure you receive copies." At home, Emily sat at her kitchen table while Adam changed upstairs. The house felt different, like returning to a place where you no longer belonged. Her phone buzzed again. Margaret's name on the screen. Calling to say good night. "Hope you had a magical evening." Emily's throat tightened. It was memorable. "I'm so proud that Noah has such opportunities. Education is the greatest gift." "Yes," Emily whispered, "the greatest gift." After they hung up, Emily remained at the table. The engraved invitation lay before her. Gold lettering now seemed to mock her. "Celebrating our community of donors." But some donors were more celebrated than others. Some donors stood in spotlights. Others remained in shadows. Some donors received applause. Others received invisibility. Emily thought about her mother's careful budgeting. The coupons clipped from Sunday papers. The generic brands chosen to save money. Also Noah could have opportunities. All given quietly, humbly, without expectation of recognition. But recognition had gone elsewhere. To someone who contributed nothing but audacity. Emily turned off the lights and went upstairs. Adam was already asleep. His tuxedo hung carefully in the closet. She changed into her nightgown and slipped into bed. The silk dress lay across the chair like a discarded costume. Tomorrow, she would return it to her sister. Pretend the evening had been lovely. Continue the performance. But something had changed tonight. Something had broken. Trust, perhaps. Or faith in fairness. Or maybe just the last illusion that good intentions always led to good outcomes. Emily closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But the applause still echoed in her mind. Applause that should have belonged to someone else. Monday morning arrived with gray clouds and the smell of rain. Emily sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through Facebook. Photos from Saturday's gala appeared in her feed. There she was, standing beside Diane, smiling, applauding, playing the role of grateful family member. The comments below the photos stung worse than she expected. "Beautiful family. Such generous hearts. The Carter Foundation does amazing work. Lucky kids to have such supportive grandparents." Emily closed the app and poured another cup of coffee. Her hands shook slightly. That afternoon, Noah bounded off the school bus with news. "Mom, guess what? They're naming the science lab after our family." Emily's coffee mug slipped from her fingers. It shattered against the kitchen tiles. "What?" Noah's excitement dimmed as he helped collect the pieces. "The Carter family lab. They announced it today." Emily's vision blurred. When? Next month. There's going to be a ceremony. That evening, Emily called Margaret. Her mother's voice sounded tired. Hello, sweetheart. Mom, they're naming a lab after the Carter family. A long pause. I see. Using your money. For their recognition. Margaret sighed softly. Emily, I'm too old to fight battles that don't matter. It matters to me. I know, dear. But sometimes we have to choose our wars. Emily hung up feeling more alone than ever. Her mother's resignation felt like abandonment. The next day brought a phone call from the school. Mrs. Carter? This is Ms. Rodriguez from development. We need to discuss the upcoming dedication ceremony. Emily's heart raced. What about it? There seems to be some confusion about donor records. Could you come in to review the paperwork? Emily arrived at Oakwood Academy 30 minutes later. The development office was quieter than usual. Ms. Rodriguez gestured to a chair across from her desk. Thank you for coming. We've received some questions about the Carter Foundation donation. What kind of questions? Ms. Rodriguez opened a thick folder. Someone contacted us claiming the actual donor wasn't properly credited. Emily's mouth went dry. Someone? They preferred not to identify themselves initially. But they've requested a formal review of our records. A knock interrupted them. Ms. Rodriguez's assistant appeared in the doorway. The appointment is here. Emily turned toward the door. An elderly woman entered slowly. Cane in her right hand. Leather purse in her left. Margaret Lee stepped into the office with quiet dignity. Emily's heart stopped. Mom? Margaret met her daughter's eyes briefly, then turned to Ms. Rodriguez. Good afternoon. I'm Margaret Lee. I believe we have an appointment. Ms. Rodriguez stood respectfully. Of course. Please, have a seat. Margaret settled into the chair beside Emily. Her movements were careful but determined. I understand there's been some confusion about donation records. Ms. Rodriguez consulted her folder. Yes. We're trying to verify the source of the Carter Foundation contribution. Margaret opened her purse and withdrew a manila envelope. I think these might help clarify things. She placed several documents on the desk. Bank statements, canceled checks, correspondence. As you can see, the donation came directly from my personal account. $25,000. Paid in 3 installments between July and September. Ms. Rodriguez studied the papers. Her expression grew increasingly uncomfortable. Mrs. Lee, these records show. Well, they show you as the donor. That's correct. But our files list the Carter Foundation. I never authorized the foundation to process my donation, Margaret said quietly. I never spoke to anyone named Diane Carter about this matter. Emily watched her mother with growing amazement. Margaret's voice remained calm, professional, but her words cut like surgical instruments. Ms. Rodriguez shuffled through more papers. I'm afraid I'll need to investigate this further. Of course, Margaret agreed. I've brought copies of everything for your review. She handed over additional documents. Receipts, letters, a complete paper trail. I also brought this, Margaret said, producing a small tape recorder. I hope you don't mind if I record our conversation. For accuracy. Ms. Rodriguez's face paled. That's certainly you're right. The door opened again. This time, Diane Carter swept into the room. Her face was flushed. Her usual composure had cracked. What's going on here? I received a call saying there were questions about my foundation. She stopped short when she saw Margaret and Emily. What are they doing here? Ms. Rodriguez stood awkwardly. Mrs. Carter, I'm afraid there's been some confusion about donation records. Diane's eyes fixed on the documents spread across the desk. What confusion? Margaret turned to face Diane directly. The confusion about who actually paid for my grandson's education. Your grandson? Noah Carter. Emily's son. My grandson. Diane's jaw tightened. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Yes, Margaret agreed. There has been. Ms. Rodriguez cleared her throat nervously. Perhaps we could all review the paperwork together. For the next 30 minutes, documents were examined. Questions were asked. Answers were demanded. The truth emerged slowly, like evidence in a courtroom. Margaret had written checks directly to the school. Diane had somehow redirected them through her foundation. The credit had been transferred without Margaret's knowledge or consent. I was trying to help with tax efficiency, Diane protested weakly. Margaret's response was gentle but devastating. I never asked for your help. When the meeting ended, Diane left first. Her exit was less graceful than her entrance. Emily and Margaret walked to the parking lot together. The afternoon sky had cleared. Sunlight felt warm on their faces. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" Margaret smiled softly. "Because you needed to see for yourself." "See what?" "That sometimes quiet people can be strong too." Emily hugged her mother carefully. Margaret felt smaller than she remembered, but somehow more powerful. What happens now? Now the school knows the truth. What they do with it is their choice. That evening, Emily's phone rang. Principal Harrison's name appeared on the screen. "Mrs. Carter, I wanted to personally apologize for the confusion about donor recognition." Emily sat down heavily. "Thank you. We'll be correcting our records immediately. And reviewing our donation processing procedures." "What about the ceremony?" "We're postponing it until we can ensure proper attribution." After hanging up, Emily felt something shift inside her chest. Like a weight being lifted. Her phone buzzed with a text from Adam. "Mom's upset about something at the school." "What happened?" Emily typed back slowly. "The truth happened." That night, she called Margaret to say good night. "Thank you for today," Emily said. "Thank you for being patient with an old woman's methods. Your methods worked." Margaret laughed softly. "Sometimes the best weapon is simply being right." Emily smiled in her dark kitchen. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Peaceful. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed replaying the afternoon's events. Her mother's quiet strength. Diane's crumbling facade. The documents spread across Ms. Rodriguez's desk like evidence in a trial. At 3 in the morning, she gave up trying to rest. The kitchen was dark and peaceful. She made tea and sat at the table where she'd opened so many pieces of mail, including the Medicare statement that had started everything. Her phone buzzed softly. A text from Margaret. "Can't sleep either. Thinking about your father." Emily called immediately. Her mother's voice was soft in the darkness. "Hi, sweetheart. Tell me about Dad." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "What brought that on?" "Today. The way you handled everything. It reminded me of something. Your father always said the truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be patient." Emily curled up in her chair. "I was so angry. For weeks. But you never seemed angry." "Oh, I was angry," Margaret said gently. "But anger without purpose is just noise." Emily thought about her father. Richard Lee had died 5 years ago. Heart attack at age 72. He'd been a quiet man. A mechanic who fixed things carefully. Completely. "He used to say that people show you who they are," Margaret continued. "You don't have to guess. You just have to pay attention." "What do you mean?" "Diane showed us exactly who she is. Someone who takes credit for other people's work. Someone who values appearance over truth." Emily felt tears forming. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner." "You didn't need to believe me, honey. You needed to see for yourself." They talked until sunrise. About Richard. About family. About the difference between being right and being loud. When Adam found Emily in the kitchen that morning, she was making pancakes. Her eyes were tired but peaceful. "You're up early. Couldn't sleep." Adam poured coffee and sat across from her. "Mom called me last night. She's pretty upset." Emily flipped a pancake carefully. "I imagine she is. She says you and your mother ambushed her." Emily's spatula paused. "Is that what she called it?" "Emily, she's family. She made a mistake, but she's still Noah's grandmother." Emily turned to face her husband fully. "She stole recognition for my mother's donation." "That's not a mistake. That's fraud." Adam's jaw tightened. "Don't you think that's a little dramatic? $25,000 dramatic?" "She was trying to help with taxes." Emily set down the spatula. "Adam, stop." "Stop what?" "Stop defending her. Stop making excuses. Stop pretending this is complicated." Adam stared at his coffee. "She's been good to us. To Noah. With other people's money. That's not fair." Emily felt something break open inside her chest. "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" Her voice was rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "My mother saved every penny for Noah's education. She clipped coupons and bought generic groceries so she could afford to help us. And your mother stole the credit. Stole the recognition. Stole the gratitude." Adam's face flushed. "Nobody stole anything." "Then what do you call it?" "A misunderstanding." Emily laughed bitterly. "A misunderstanding that happened to benefit your mother perfectly." Noah appeared in the doorway, drawn by raised voices. Why are you guys fighting? Emily's anger deflated immediately. We're not fighting, sweetheart. We're discussing. It sounds like fighting. Emily hugged her son. Sometimes adults have to talk about difficult things. Noah looked between his parents uncertainly. Is Grandma Diane in trouble? Emily and Adam exchanged glances. The weight of explanation felt overwhelming. Grandma Diane made some mistakes about paperwork, Emily said carefully. We're helping her fix them. That afternoon, Emily drove to Margaret's apartment. Her mother lived in a modest complex near the senior center. 2 bedrooms, clean carpet, windows that faced a small garden. Margaret was organizing her weekly pill case when Emily arrived. Monday through Sunday compartments, each day divided into morning and evening doses. How are you feeling? Emily asked. Old, Margaret said with a smile. But satisfied. They sat together on the small couch. Margaret's hands were steady as she poured tea from her good china. I keep thinking about the expression on that woman's face, Margaret said. Ms. Rodriguez? Diane. When she realized I had paperwork. Emily laughed softly. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. The ghost of actual documentation. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Margaret's apartment was peaceful. No television, no electronic noise, just the soft ticking of an old clock. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you wait so long to say something? Margaret considered the question carefully. I wanted to see how far it would go. How far what would go? The lie. Sometimes you have to let people expose themselves completely. Emily understood. You were gathering evidence. I was watching character reveal itself. Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. Pages covered with careful handwriting. What's that? Everything. Dates. Phone calls. The conversation where Diane suggested using her foundation. The promises about privacy. The first time I saw her take credit. Emily stared at the notebook. You documented everything? Your father taught me that. He said people will always deny what they can deny. But they can't deny what you can prove. Margaret flipped through pages of meticulous notes. Times, places, quotes. A complete record of deception. You were building a case. I was protecting the truth. That evening, Emily sat at her kitchen table with her laptop. She composed an email to Principal Harrison. Dear Mr. Harrison, following today's meeting, I wanted to provide additional context about my mother's donation to Oakwood Academy. Margaret Lee is 81 years old. She lives on Social Security and a small pension from her late husband's job at the county garage. The $25,000 she donated represents her entire savings account. She gave this money quietly, without expectation of recognition, because she believes education is the greatest gift we can give children. She asked only for privacy. Instead, someone else claimed her generosity as their own. I hope the school will take appropriate action to restore proper recognition and prevent future misappropriation of donor credit. Sincerely, Emily Carter. She read the email 3 times before sending it. Her phone rang an hour later. Principal Harrison's voice was formal but warm. Mrs. Carter, I received your email. I want you to know we take donor misrepresentation very seriously. Thank you. We've decided to return the donation to your mother directly. She can then redonate it under her own name if she chooses. Emily felt relief wash through her. That sounds fair. We're also reviewing all Carter Foundation donations for similar irregularities. After hanging up, Emily called Margaret. The school is returning your donation. You can give it again properly if you want. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Do you think I should? That's your choice, Mom. What would you do? Emily thought about it. I'd make them earn it back. Margaret laughed softly. That sounds like something your father would say. He taught me well. He taught us both well. That night, Emily slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The truth had emerged. Documentation had prevailed over deception. Justice was quiet, but it was real. The following Wednesday, Emily received a phone call that changed everything. Mrs. Carter? This is Detective Martinez with the Naperville Police Department. We need to discuss some irregularities involving charitable donations. Emily's blood chilled. What kind of irregularities? Financial fraud. Multiple complaints have been filed regarding the Carter Foundation. Can you come to the station? That afternoon, Emily sat in a sterile conference room across from Detective Martinez and Agent Sarah Chen from the Illinois Attorney General's office. "How long have you known about your mother-in-law's foundation activities?" Agent Chen asked. Emily's hands trembled as she reached for her water cup. "I just found out about the foundation 2 weeks ago." Detective Martinez opened a thick file. "We've received complaints from 4 other families, all claiming similar donor credit theft." Emily's stomach dropped. 4 others? The Morrison family, the Patels, the Johansons, and an anonymous tip that led us to investigate further. Agent Chen slid photos across the table. School newsletters, hospital donor walls, museum plaques, all bearing Diane Carter's name. 43 separate incidents over 7 years, she continued. Total amount misappropriated over $300,000. Emily stared at the evidence. Photo after photo of Diane's name in bronze lettering. Recognition that belonged to other families. "We need you to provide testimony about your mother's donation." "Of course." Detective Martinez leaned forward. "Mrs. Carter, we believe your mother-in-law has been running an elaborate scheme, convincing families to donate through her foundation for tax benefits, then claiming credit publicly." Emily's vision blurred. "She's been doing this for 7 years? According to our investigation, yes." That evening, Emily sat in her car outside Diane's house. The Tudor mansion gleamed in the twilight. Manicured lawns, professional landscaping, a fountain in the circular driveway, all funded by other people's generosity. Emily's phone rang. Margaret's name on the screen. "Hello, sweetheart. How was your day?" Emily couldn't find words. "Mom, it's bigger than we thought." "What's bigger?" "Diane's fraud. The police are involved now." Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "How many families?" "4 others. Maybe more." Emily heard her mother sigh softly. "Oh, Emily, what do I do?" "You tell the truth. All of it." 2 days later, Emily found herself back at the police station. This time with Margaret beside her. Her mother carried her leather purse and a manila folder thick with documentation. Agent Chen recorded their statements carefully. Margaret's voice never wavered as she described Diane's initial approach. She said the foundation would provide better tax benefits. She seemed knowledgeable about charitable giving procedures. "Did she promise public recognition?" Detective Martinez asked. "She promised privacy. She said my name wouldn't appear anywhere." Emily added her perspective. "The gala, the applause, the way Diane basked in stolen gratitude. She enjoyed it," Emily said. "The attention, the respect. She fed on recognition that wasn't hers." Agent Chen showed them additional evidence. Bank records, foundation documents, a paper trail of systematic deception. "Your mother-in-law collected donations through the foundation, then used them for personal recognition purposes while claiming tax benefits for herself." Margaret studied the bank statements. How much did she personally benefit? Approximately $50,000 in improper tax deductions, plus the social capital from false recognition. After giving their statements, Emily and Margaret sat in the parking lot. "I keep thinking about the other families," Emily said. "People who saved money for good causes. Just like you." Margaret patted her daughter's hand. "The truth protects more than just us now." That afternoon, Emily's phone rang constantly. Word had spread through the private school community. Parents called with questions. Reporters requested interviews. She ignored most calls, but one number she recognized. "Emily?" Adam's voice sounded strained. "I'm at Mom's house. The police searched it this morning." Emily closed her eyes. What did they find? Files, records. She kept documentation of everything. Documentation of what? The families she convinced to donate. Their financial information. Her strategies for approaching them. Emily felt sick. She planned this. It looks that way. That evening, Adam came home looking like he'd aged 10 years. He sat heavily at the kitchen table. "They arrested her," he said quietly. Emily sat across from him. "When?" 2 hours ago. "Fraud, tax evasion, identity theft." They sat in silence while Noah played video games upstairs. The house felt different, like a place where secrets had finally been exposed. "I need to ask you something," Adam said. Emily waited. "Did you know? When you first confronted me about the donation?" Emily met his eyes. "Did I know what? That it was this big? This systematic?" Emily shook her head. "I just knew it was wrong." Adam's shoulders sagged. I should have listened to you. Yes, Emily agreed. You should have. The next morning brought news reports. Local television stations picked up the story. Private school donation fraud uncovered. Diane's photo appeared on screen beside courthouse footage. Emily turned off the television and called Margaret. Are you watching the news? No, dear. I don't need to watch what I already lived. Emily smiled despite everything. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Justice doesn't require my participation anymore. It has its own momentum now. That afternoon, Principal Harrison called Emily personally. I wanted to inform you that we're conducting a complete audit of all foundation donations. We're also implementing new procedures to prevent future fraud. What about current recognition? The plaques and donor walls? We're removing everything pending verification. Only documented donors will receive credit going forward. Emily felt something settle in her chest. Relief mixed with sadness. The next week, Emily visited the school during lunch. The donor wall in the main hallway looked different. Empty spaces where bronze plaques had been removed. Workers measured wall space for new installations. She walked past the science wing. Construction tape covered the entrance where Diane's name had been displayed. In the development office, Ms. Rodriguez looked up with weary eyes. Mrs. Carter, how can I help you? I wanted to ask about my mother's donation status. Ms. Rodriguez consulted her computer. We're prepared to reinstate her donation under proper attribution. The science lab dedication can proceed with correct recognition. Emily nodded. I'll discuss it with her. There's something else, Ms. Rodriguez continued. Several families want to thank your mother personally. Her complaint started the investigation that exposed everything. Emily thought about Margaret's quiet determination. The notebook, the documented phone calls, the patience to let truth emerge naturally. I'll let her know. That evening, Emily found Margaret organizing her photographs. Old albums spread across her kitchen table. Pictures of Richard, Emily as a child, Noah at various ages. What are you doing? Remembering what matters, Margaret said simply. Emily sat beside her mother. A photo caught her eye. Her father at Christmas, 2 years before he died. He was smiling quietly while Noah opened presents. He would be proud of you, Emily said. Margaret touched the photo gently. He always said the hardest thing about doing right is that nobody notices until you don't do it. Emily understood. Good character was invisible until it was tested. The school wants to restore your recognition, Emily said. Margaret closed the album carefully. Do you think I should let them? What do you want to do? Margaret smiled. I want to think about what your father would say. What would he say? That recognition isn't the point. Doing right is the point. Emily hugged her mother carefully. Then we'll do what feels right. Outside, autumn was ending. Winter's first snow dusted the windows. But inside Margaret's small apartment, warmth lingered. Truth had prevailed. Quietly. Completely. Just the way Richard Lee had always said it would. 3 months later, Emily sat in courtroom 4B of the DuPage County Courthouse. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Wooden benches creaked as people shifted nervously. Diane Carter sat at the defendant's table. Her silver hair was perfectly styled. Her navy suit looked expensive. But her hands trembled as she signed documents. Emily watched from the gallery with Margaret beside her. Other families filled the rows behind them. The Morrisons, the Patels, the Johansons, all seeking justice for stolen recognition. Judge Patricia Walsh called the court to order. Her voice was firm and clear. We're here for sentencing in the matter of People versus Diane Carter. Prosecutor Michael Stevens stood first. Your Honor, the defendant orchestrated a 7-year scheme to defraud charitable donors. She exploited trust. She stole recognition. She damaged institutions that serve our community's children. Emily listened as the evidence was presented. Bank records, forged documents, recorded phone calls where Diane convinced families to donate through her foundation. The defendant didn't just steal money, Stevens continued. She stole dignity. She stole the satisfaction that comes from genuine philanthropy. Diane's attorney, a nervous young man in an ill-fitting suit, rose to respond. Your Honor, my client made mistakes. But she also contributed to worthy causes. The children still received education. The institutions still benefited. Judge Walsh's expression remained neutral. Counselor, are you suggesting that good outcomes excuse fraudulent methods? No, Your Honor. I'm suggesting that my client's actions, while wrong, came from a desire to help. Emily felt anger rise in her throat. Even now, excuses were being made. Mrs. Carter, please stand, Judge Walsh instructed. Diane rose slowly. Her usual confidence had evaporated. You have pled guilty to fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft. Before I impose sentence, do you wish to address the court? Diane's voice was barely audible. I want to apologize to the families I hurt. I never intended. Speak louder, Mrs. Carter. Diane cleared her throat. I never intended to harm anyone. I thought I was helping with tax efficiency. Judge Walsh studied the defendant carefully. Mrs. Carter, your actions spanned 7 years. You maintained detailed records of your deceptions. This was not a mistake. This was a pattern. Emily watched Diane's face crumble. The woman who had basked in stolen applause now stood exposed and diminished. Furthermore, the judge continued, your victims included elderly donors on fixed incomes. People who sacrificed their own security to benefit children and communities. You exploited their generosity for personal gain. The courtroom was silent except for the soft whir of the ventilation system. I sentence you to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised probation. You will also make full restitution to all affected parties and perform 300 hours of community service. The gavel fell with finality. Emily felt Margaret's hand squeeze hers gently. Around them, other families exhaled with relief. Justice was quiet, but it was complete. Outside the courthouse, Emily and Margaret stood in afternoon sunlight. Other families gathered on the steps, sharing stories and contact information. Mrs. Morrison approached them. She was a small woman with kind eyes. Mrs. Lee, I wanted to thank you. Your complaint started the investigation that saved us all. Margaret smiled modestly. I just told the truth. Your truth protected all of us. Emily watched her mother accept gratitude with the same grace she'd shown when giving anonymously. That evening, Adam called from his hotel room. He was staying downtown while the divorce proceedings continued. I watched the news coverage, he said. How are you holding up? I'm okay. Your mother looked smaller somehow. She is smaller. Without other people's accomplishments to inflate her. Emily appreciated his honesty. The marriage was ending, but slowly. With lawyers and mediation and careful division of assets. How's Noah handling everything? Better than expected. He asks questions. I answer them honestly. That's all we can do. 2 weeks later, Emily received a call from Principal Harrison. The board has voted unanimously to restore proper recognition to all affected donors. We're planning a rededication ceremony. Emily sat in her kitchen, looking out at autumn leaves. What kind of ceremony? Simple, dignified, no speeches or fanfare, just accurate attribution. Emily thought about Margaret's preference for privacy. Can I get back to you? That afternoon, she visited her mother. Margaret was reading in her favorite chair. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains. The school wants to do a rededication ceremony, Emily said. Margaret closed her book carefully. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever feels right to you. Margaret was quiet for several minutes. I keep thinking about the other families. The ones who donated quietly, like me. What about them? Maybe they deserve to be seen. Not for applause, but for truth. Emily understood. Recognition wasn't about ego. It was about honesty. If I agree to the ceremony, Margaret continued, will you stand with me? Always. The rededication took place on a crisp November morning. No red carpet. No photographer. Just families gathering in the school's main hallway. Principal Harrison spoke briefly. Today we restore truth to recognition. We honor the real generosity that makes education possible. One by one, new plaques were unveiled. Simple bronze rectangles with accurate names. The Margaret Lee Science Laboratory. Emily watched her mother's face as applause filled the hallway. Not the stolen applause from the gala, but genuine gratitude from people who knew the truth. Margaret stepped forward and spoke quietly. Education is the greatest gift we can give children. Not because of the givers, but because of the recipients. She gestured toward the students watching from classroom doorways. These young people will shape tomorrow. Our job is simply to help them prepare. The ceremony lasted 30 minutes. No long speeches, no dramatic moments, just the quiet restoration of dignity. Afterward, Emily and Margaret walked to the parking lot together. How do you feel? Emily asked. Peaceful, Margaret said, like something broken has been repaired. That evening, Emily sat at her kitchen table with legal documents spread before her. Divorce papers, property division agreements, custody schedules. The house felt different now. Quieter, more honest. Noah appeared in the doorway with homework questions. They worked together at the table where so many difficult conversations had taken place. Mom, why did Grandma Diane go to jail? Emily chose her words carefully. She took credit for things she didn't do. That's called fraud. Will she come back? Someday, but not to live with us. Noah nodded thoughtfully. Is that why Dad moved out? Dad and I had different ideas about right and wrong. Sometimes families can't fix those differences. Are you sad? Emily considered the question honestly. Sometimes, but not about choosing truth. That weekend, Emily and Noah visited Margaret for Sunday dinner. They sat around her small table eating pot roast and sharing stories. Margaret had framed a photo from the rededication ceremony. Not a picture of herself, but of the students watching from the doorway. That's what matters, she said, pointing to the young faces. Their futures. Emily looked at her son and her mother. 3 generations connected by honesty and sacrifice. Outside, winter was coming. But inside Margaret's small apartment, warmth prevailed. Truth had been tested, justice had been served, and quiet dignity had triumphed over stolen applause. The way Richard Lee had always said it would. 6 months later, Margaret Lee walked into the Naperville Senior Center carrying a small potted plant. The volunteer coordinator smiled when she approached the front desk. Mrs. Lee, perfect timing. The literacy program volunteers just arrived. Margaret signed in and pinned on her name tag. Around her, seniors gathered with books and reading materials. The morning light felt warm through tall windows. She found her assigned table in the back corner. A quiet spot near the garden window. Perfect for helping adults learn to read without feeling observed. Her first student was Maria Santos, a woman in her 40s who worked nights cleaning offices. She had 3 children and dreams of getting her GED. I'm nervous, Maria admitted, settling into her chair. Margaret opened a simple reader. That's normal. Learning takes courage at any age. They worked together for an hour. Basic phonics. Simple sentences. Margaret's patience was infinite. You're a natural teacher, Maria said at the end of their session. I'm a natural learner, Margaret replied. We're the same that way. After volunteering, Margaret drove to Emily's house. The divorce had been finalized 2 months ago. Emily and Noah had kept the house. Adam visited every other weekend. Emily was in the kitchen preparing lunch when Margaret arrived. How was the literacy program? Meaningful, Margaret said, settling into her usual chair. I helped someone spell opportunity today. Noah bounded downstairs with a school project. A poster about inspirational people. Margaret's photo was glued in the center, surrounded by words like generous, and brave, and truthful. I'm presenting about you tomorrow, he announced proudly. Margaret studied the poster carefully. What will you tell them about me? That you helped kids get a good education. And that you stood up to bullies. Margaret smiled. What else? Noah thought for a moment. That quiet people can be strong too. After lunch, the 3 of them walked to Centennial Park. Autumn leaves crunched under their feet. The air was crisp and clean. They sat on a bench overlooking the small pond. Ducks glided across the water's surface. Families with young children fed them breadcrumbs from the shore. I have something to tell you both, Margaret said. Emily looked concerned. What is it? Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out a letter. Official stationery. Legal formatting. The court ordered restitution from Diane's conviction. All the donors received payments. Emily took the letter and read it carefully. Mom, this is for $37,000. Interest and damages. More than I originally donated. Emily stared at the check attached to the letter. What will you do with it? Margaret watched the ducks for a moment. I've been thinking about that literacy program. They need books, computers, basic supplies. You want to donate it? I want to use it properly. For people who really need opportunities. Noah looked up from the pond. Will they put your name on anything? Margaret laughed gently. I hope not. The best gifts don't need name tags. That evening, Emily helped Margaret organize her weekly medications. They sat at Margaret's kitchen table sorting pills into small compartments. Can I ask you something? Emily said. Anything. Are you happy? Really happy? Margaret considered the question seriously. I'm content. That's better than happy. What's the difference? Happy depends on circumstances. Content comes from knowing you've done right. Emily felt tears forming. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand. You understood fine. You just needed time to trust what you knew. They finished organizing the medications in comfortable silence. Margaret's apartment was peaceful. No television noise. No electronic distractions. Just the soft ticking of Richard's old clock. I kept something from the trial, Margaret said suddenly. She rose and walked to her bedroom. When she returned, she carried a small wooden box. What is it? Margaret opened the box carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten on yellow legal paper. Diane wrote this while she was in jail. Her attorney delivered it. Emily read the letter slowly. An apology. An admission of guilt. A request for forgiveness. What do you think? Margaret asked. I think she finally told the truth. Do you think I should forgive her? Emily handed back the letter. I think forgiveness is for your peace, not hers. Margaret nodded slowly. Your father always said forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about letting go. Have you let go? I'm working on it. The next morning brought snow. Not a blizzard, just gentle flakes dusting the windows. Margaret made tea and called Emily. I've made a decision about the restitution money. What's your decision? I'm splitting it 3 ways. 1/3 to the literacy program. 1/3 to a scholarship fund. 1/3 to you and Noah. Emily's throat tightened. Mom, we don't need. I need to do this. For my peace. That afternoon, Emily, Margaret, and Noah met with an attorney to establish the Margaret Lee Education Fund. A simple nonprofit dedicated to helping adults return to school. The fund will provide books, tutoring, and small scholarships, the attorney explained. No recognition required. Anonymous giving only. Margaret signed the documents with a steady hand. Emily watched her mother create something lasting from something stolen. This feels right, Margaret said. 2 weeks later, Emily received a call from Maria Santos. Is this Mrs. Carter? Margaret Lee's daughter? Yes. I wanted to thank you. The education fund paid for my GED prep course. I graduate next month. Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. She'll be so happy to hear that. Will you tell her something for me? Of course. Tell her that kindness multiplies. My children see me studying now. They understand that learning never stops. That evening, Emily shared Maria's message with Margaret over dinner. They were at Emily's house. Noah was upstairs doing homework. She's right about kindness multiplying, Emily said. Margaret smiled softly. Your father used to say that goodness is like a stone dropped in still water. The ripples go farther than you can see. They sat in comfortable silence, watching snow fall outside the kitchen window. Mom, do you ever regret the way things happened? The trial, the publicity, all of it? Margaret shook her head. I regret that it was necessary. But not that it happened. Why not? Because truth protected more than just us. It protected people we'll never meet. Emily understood. Justice wasn't personal. It was communal. Later that night, Emily tucked Noah into bed. He was reading a library book about inventors. Mom, do you think I'll do something important when I grow up? Emily sat on the edge of his bed. You already do important things. Like what? Like being kind. Like telling the truth. Like standing up for what's right. Noah smiled sleepily. Like Grandma Margaret? Exactly like Grandma Margaret. After Noah fell asleep, Emily stood in her kitchen looking out at the snowy yard. The house felt peaceful, honest, like a place where secrets couldn't survive. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Sleep well, sweetheart. Tomorrow brings new opportunities to do good. Emily typed back, love you, Mom. Thank you for teaching me what matters. She turned off the lights and went upstairs. Outside, snow continued falling, covering the neighborhood in quiet white. Inside, warmth lingered, not just from the heating system, but from the knowledge that truth had prevailed. That justice had been served. That ordinary people could create extraordinary change through simple honesty. Margaret was right about ripples. Goodness did travel farther than you could see. Emily fell asleep thinking about Maria Santos studying for her GED. About other adults learning to read. About children who would benefit from scholarships funded by recovered restitution. Life didn't end just because it broke once. What fell apart could be the very place where we learned to stand again. If this story gave even a small moment of strength to someone out there, then everything she went through means something today. Emily thought about the viewers who might hear this story. People facing their own betrayals. Their own moments of choosing between comfort and truth. Sometimes the hardest battles were fought quietly. In courtrooms and school offices. With documentation and patience instead of anger and noise. But those quiet battles mattered most. Because they protected not just individual dignity, but the idea that honesty should be rewarded and deception should have consequences. Emily smiled in the darkness of her bedroom. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, she rested in the knowledge that she and her mother had chosen correctly. Truth was worth fighting for. Justice was worth waiting for. And dignity, once restored, could light the way for others still finding their courage. Life doesn't end just because it breaks once. What falls apart can be the very place where we learn to stand again. If this story gave even a small moment of strength to someone out there, then everything I went through means something today. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe, and share a piece of your own story in the comments below. Your words might become the seed of the next chapter we create together. Thank you for spending this